Welcome to Save the Frogs Academy. This is week 2 of our Lake Erie's Toads class, where our goal is to protect the Fowler's toads that are under threat from condominium development at Lake Erie in Ontario, Canada, in the town of Fort Erie. Can everyone see and hear me? Can someone chat that they can both see and hear my screen? See my screen and hear me? Okay, great. All right, so yes, as Marie said, I am recording this, so bear that in mind when you say certain things. And
conference right now. Can you call back at 9:30?
I'm going to mute everybody. There you go. Everyone's muted. Okay, I'm going to start by saying some things that I did in the past week related to this campaign, and then I'm going to pass it on to you all so that you can tell us what you did, ask any questions, get input from us, and then tell us what you're going to do next week. All right, so right now we've got Lindsay, Marie, Ryan, and I'm told that Tessa is working on logging in. All right, so here's some things that I did. This morning I emailed all the Canadians on our mailing list, which is about 400 people, and invited them to join us on this call. And I went on Facebook and I had the thought, and first off, we're at facebook.com/SaveTheFrogs. So if you're not already a Facebook follower on Save the Frogs, then go to facebook.com/SaveTheFrogs. You can find me at facebook.com/Kerry Kriger. And on that note, I'll also say that I started, well, I won't say it. Anyway, I'll continue back to my original thought. Yeah, I typed in Fort Erie just to see what came up, and a couple different pages came up of organizations in Fort Erie. One was a newspaper, and one I think was the Arts Council, and I posted that we're having this class here. I think it's a good idea. If you all know Fort Erie pages, I didn't do any looking, but you know, if there are organizations in Fort Erie and we have something we can post on their page, such as a call to action, Fort Erie or Ontario gave permits to build a condominium that will destroy the toads, please sign this petition, that kind of thing. I think it's perfectly fine and a good idea to post on some of those pages, because people look at those pages and they're potential supporters who maybe have never heard of the issue, or they've heard of the issue but don't know how to get involved. So it's free advertisement to us minus our time to post. And also that's another, you know, possible volunteer job for somebody. If you know someone who wants to help and they're into social media, then just slamming social media with this kind of stuff is good. All right, we've been thinking about how we are running the Save the Frogs Academy courses, which are brand new and certainly experimental. And I kind of purposely made it a thorough application process to take these classes, because I wanted to see how motivated people are if they're willing to actually read a couple web pages and take the time to apply. And that probably worked well, maybe too well, because we didn't get that many people for these classes. It could also be that I wasn't clear on things like you can just take one class at a time. You don't need to take 100 classes or to be on path to graduate or anything like that. So I want more people in these classes, but I want you guys who put in your time and our official students to get top priority. So I think what we're going to do is keep the Save the Frogs Day classes happening in the way they are, that we get together with known people who took the time to apply and want to put in some effort each week on behalf of the campaign in question. But we do want more people on these calls, and it would be good exposure to certain people who may then become more thorough students. But regardless, people should be able to sit in, listen in, and give their viewpoints and hopefully get inspired to take part in some way. So we, I think, are going to leave it how it is with all of you guys can apply. You'll be top tier, first priority. So each week we'll go around just like we're going around now, and I'll say something and then all of you can talk. And then, provided that there's time at the end of class, we'll open it up to anyone else who's online. And this will mean that we can put all these classes on the events page so that anyone going to the events page sees that there's a free online meeting coming up, and we can otherwise promote it, and I think, and also add it to our newsletter, etc. So I think it'll start getting more and more people as people join us and become interested and more involved. Before I continue on that point, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to you all to, or I'll say just if you want to say something with regards to that, any of your thoughts on how to get more people in these classes and in what form that should be, go ahead and type and I can unmute you. You can just say hi right now in your chat box and I'll unmute you. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Okay, we got one thumbs up. All right. And, of course, at any point when you have the mic, you're welcome to talk about this. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Our action alert, we got the list of politicians sorted out. I was hoping to have it done by today. I don't. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I'll probably even make a video recording of our system that allows us to prepare these action alerts so that other people potentially, certainly Save the Frog staff, but maybe some of you all, if you want to remain involved on campaigns, know how to prepare an action alert. An action alert is what it's called when you get an email from an organization telling you to go send a letter to your politician. Click through on their automated site. And we have Tessa on the line. Welcome. Tessa, how's it going? All right. So, yeah, we should have an action alert ready tomorrow, at which point I will send that out to 29,000 email addresses on our list telling everybody to go send a letter to Canada's politicians related to the federal government's Environment Canada call for comments about the Fowler's toad. I think it's a recovery plan. It's something related to how Canadians should treat Fowler's toads. And once you do get that, please be sure to put it up on your social media sites, forward the email to your friends and colleagues, toad lovers, development haters, and ask them to sign as well, to send the letter. It's not a petition. It's just a letter, an email that's going to go out to Canadian politicians. I sent a letter to Don Lubberts, who's a councilman for the town of Fort Erie, and he is the most ardent supporter of the our side as far as the Fort Erie politicians goes. I believe that's correct. And let's see. Yeah, so I asked him if he could join us on this meeting or any of our meetings to take questions and give us his thoughts on things. And he said that this precise time on a Monday conflicts with maybe town meetings or something like that. in Fort Erie that he has to attend. He's happy to do it on a Sunday night, but I haven't gotten a specific time from him. And also, I wanted to verify with you all that if we could get him on a Sunday night, would you all want to, meet on a Sunday night? I don't know if that'll mean changing the whole time or just being online long enough to talk to him and then calling it good and then meeting on the Monday. Okay. All right. So it sounds like perhaps Marie, do you think you could contact him? I know you have his email address, and let him know that we thank him for offering to come online to talk to us, and if we could do it at Sunday, 5 p.m., whether it's this Sunday or the next Sunday. Okay, thanks. Great. So hopefully we'll have him online, and I certainly don't mind, Marie, if you send a letter or call up. Okay, oh great, we got Patrick on the line, that's good. Okay. I think, Marie, also, you're welcome to contact Doug Martin, Mayor Doug Martin, who is the opposition. Let him know we're meeting online. I can do it if you don't want to do it, but maybe just let me know. Somebody, I think, should contact Mayor Doug Martin of Fort Erie, say, we're meeting online. We're a group of students who support environmental protection, and okay, I'll do it unless somebody out there maybe who does not. I'll do it. I'll do it. Okay, I'll put that on my list. I've already spoken to the mayor once. I don't expect him to say yes, but he's a politician, and sometimes they want to talk to the opposition, perhaps. Okay. Moving on. I added several documents. You don't have to read them, but they're here if you want them, and they're here for other people. At the bottom of this page, which is savethefrogs.com/lake-erie-toads. You don't need all that stuff up here. The shortcut is savethefrogs.com/lake-erie-toads. And if you scroll down additional reading, I added several documents to here, so you can check them out. And next up, I'm pretty excited to have youtube.com/savethefrogs getting some more videos up there. And as you can see, I've been adding these Save the Frogs Academy videos to the site full length. So bear that in mind when you talk. I think we can refrain from using last names. I don't expect any problems in this regard, but we can just stick with the first names. And yeah, so some of these have gotten some views. Lake Erie's Fowler's Toads, that's 14 viewers. Maybe that's some of us, but whatever it is, it means that our small class has basically tripled in size in the last 3 days. So as we add more of these videos and people start watching them and enjoying them, then they'll get more views, and everything we do will have a larger effect. This Intro to Amphibian Conservation video I put up has 41 views, so that's pretty good for a hour and 50-minute video. Not a lot of people, most people's attention span is about 3 minutes. So also, if you miss a class, and that's something we've never discussed, try to be at all the classes. If you have to miss a class, then, that's the way it is. And we'll have these classes for video, so I expect that if you're a student and you're working to get some credit from this class and you want an actual pass, then you should if you do miss a class, make sure you go watch the video so that you know what's going on. And also on that topic, again, remember that each of you has 30 minutes with me during the week. That's a 30 minutes of stuff you email me, phone call to me, Skype with me to discuss various things, get my assistance. And so it's best, I would like to talk to each of you each week. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It's easier for me if it's less than 30 minutes. But if you have stuff to discuss, then take advantage of it. And when possible, if you know you're meeting with me during the week, don't send me lots of emails unless they're urgent. Just store up all your questions for when we meet, and then we can go over each point on the phone or Skype or in a more condensed manner. All right, so I think that's everything that I have to say for now. So what I am going to do is I'd like to get Patrick on the line because I don't know how long he plans to be on. And so I'm unmuting you, Patrick, and you can introduce yourself in any way you want. And if you have thoughts on any of this, go for it. And I'll start by saying that Patrick was the one who informed me of this whole Fowler's toad issue. So hi, Patrick.
Good evening, Kerry.
Welcome.
It's very nice to be on. I've never done anything like this before, so I greatly appreciate the invitation.
Okay. So do you want to say anything to the class?
Yeah, certainly. I could give a little bit of background.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Firstly, you had mentioned about introducing myself. This case with the Fowler's toads at Crystal Beach, Fort Erie, is certainly near and dear. I grew up in the Niagara region, Ontario, Canada, and as such, this is but a short drive away, a little bit of a longer bike ride, but nonetheless close to home. And as you will have known as students of the Fowler's toad class here, that the development is slated to take place along the very critical shoreline dune habitat, not only for the Fowler's toad, but for a host of threatened species here in the province. Yeah, certainly no shortage of concern regarding not only the the very imperiled landscape, which is taking over the very rare shoreline habitat, especially along the Great Lakes, but nonetheless habitat, of course.
Okay. Thanks. Do you want to, do you have anything else to say? I didn't know if that was the end.
Yeah, sure, Kerry. If you don't mind my asking, have you been able to contact representatives from Environment Canada? I know my attempts at this point have been quite futile. Other than that, I've only had one response from higher-ups in the Canadian government that deal with environmental issues, and that is that they do not plan to take any action, sadly, to try to appeal this case.
Yeah, I have not spoken to any Environment Canada politicians, though that's certainly a good idea. And if someone can set me up a meeting with one, I'm not sure who to contact. Perhaps Eliza, who just joined us, knows. But regardless, as I said, we're about to be mass emailing them within a couple days. So they will know who we are, and then they will be informed of the issue for certain, and we will be, you know, a known entity to them should we decide to actually talk to somebody on the phone. I guess it's just from my experience talking to a politician, especially one who is not in charge and they just kind of follow their orders and go by the paperwork and the regulations and all that. It does not usually have much it doesn't usually have much outcome. Perhaps
Right.
they'd be able to tell me, yeah, we're set to have a meeting on this issue in May, and we're going to be deciding on the something or something in October. That's usually what I get.
Okay.
But that that doesn't mean we shouldn't be talking to them. I personally haven't had time and had not thought to do it. But if you know a specific person that I should talk to, if you send me their contact info, I will certainly send them a personal email or call them.
Super. Thank you. I will look into that and pass the contact along accordingly.
Okay.
As well, if you had a moment to address it, I'm not sure if we're able to, in a situation like this, ask regarding the perceptions of others on the issue. But I have tried to contact on numerous occasions Dr. David Green,
Okay.
he's the foremost Fowler's toad expert, certainly here in Ontario, if not also cross-border into Ohio and the surrounding states. But his extensive research and, in fact, his primary authorship on the Fowler's toad recovery strategy in the province has certainly piqued my interest, because it's fundamental for the recovery, and it's supposed to be the strategy to allow the recovery. And being that this Crystal Beach population is one of 3 Fowler's toad populations in Ontario, and the only population that is currently outside of protected lands, that is provincial or national parks, obviously their decline and possible extirpation is of foremost concern. And I was hoping that Dr. David Green would be able to give me his take on it, but despite over half a dozen attempts to bring him into some discussion, I've yet to hear his status on whether the toad population would be able to persist in light of this development, and as well whether the mitigation strategies and the quote-unquote overall benefit that's been proposed is truly effective.
Okay. Yeah, I've been in touch with him. It's been many months, and it would be good to have him on this call as well.
Okay.
And I do know that, as with many scientists, I am under the impression that he tries to stay out of political issues.
Yeah, no surprise there.
So that's as with many scientists, and not all scientists. I'm a scientist. I go under the viewpoint that it's my obligation to get involved with political issues.
Yes.
But many scientists, either they don't want to, or maybe they think it will be to the detriment of their science, that no one will trust their science if they take a side, which, it's potentially valid viewpoints. So, I just go with, if you avoid the issue, you're not going to get as much done than if you get straight to taking care of the issue.
Absolutely.
But I'm not sure how involved he'll get, but maybe if we can get him on this call and he sees lots of people who are involved, then maybe he'll get more involved. And whether we need his involvement is a different question. We're not dependent on any one person. I do know, because I added it to the site yesterday, I think that Ryan sent it to me, that right in the additional reading section, right at the top, is his executive summary.
That's right.
For, we're not going to see it right there. Anyway, he's got a 2-page executive summary for the recovery of the Fowler's toad, and I'm not sure where the entire document is, but from his executive summary, it's quite clear that he does not think that building the condominium is good for the toads. So anyway, I will attempt to contact him and see if he can join us and take our questions. I think that would be good.
That would be incredibly valuable, I agree.
Yeah, and actually that brings up a point that one of my original thoughts was that we need a an actual town meeting in Fort Erie where we bring together developers, politicians, scientists, members of the community, and whoever else wants to join for a big panel Q&A where everyone can say what's on their mind and everyone can field questions. And I don't know if any developer or politician from the other side would want to take part. I know that Mayor Doug Martin explicitly told me he had no interest in that when I brought it up to him. But that can't happen unless we have somebody in the town to set it up. I'm a long way from Fort Erie. But we could easily have that kind of thing happening right here on Save the Frogs Academy online meeting.
Fine.
So, yeah, maybe, you know, if we, everyone out there, I'm not sure what their plans are for the upcoming week, but maybe someone out there wants to just spend some time. I can give people a list of names of people who would be good to have on the meeting, or maybe we should just go ahead and set it up because it's short notice that we just pick a date at least a few weeks out. We could do it 2 weeks from today, but I think that just gives people an excuse to be like, nah, it's too short notice. I can't do that. So maybe if people have thoughts on that. But if someone wants to take the time to contact relevant people to say, hey, we're all meeting online, and you're welcome to join us to give your thoughts and take questions. And that's people, whether they're supporters of ours or opposition. I think it would be good to have that.
Okay, have you run that before with government
We've never done
officials,
anything like that.
Okay. That
They
could
can
be very
say no.
interesting then.
They can say no, but their side does not grow. Their side does not get stronger by avoiding the issue. If what they say has merit, then they should be, or if they're wise with their words, which Mayor Doug Martin is, because I spoke to him and he knows how to, kind of get you thinking that maybe he's right. That's kind of what politicians do if they're good. So anyway, it's their opportunity to, calm the opposition. So they can, we're inviting them. If they don't show up, then they don't. But still, we can get people like David Green and anyone else who we specifically hope would be on the call because they're probably on our side or are paid to be unbiased like the government people are, I guess. Okay.
Kerry, I'd be very interested in setting that up, and I do know at least one of David Green's former graduate students who conducted her master's research on this particular population of Fowler's toads. So
good. So let's be in touch about that, and we'll compile a list of names of people who we think should be on it.
Absolutely, please and thank you.
Okay. So thanks for being here and for informing me of this issue.
You're welcome. Right. Thank you.
Okay. So let's see. All right, well, we have, before I move on to the students, we have a very special guest here, and I'm going to give her a chance to say something, even if it's not about the toads. We have Sienna on the line, and she's been volunteering for a long time. Sienna, you're unmuted, so you can say anything you want. Hi.
What's that?
Hi, thank you for all your Save the Frogs volunteering. Do you have anything to say related to toads or to the students of Save the Frogs Academy?
Well, welcome to Save the Frogs. I don't have anything specific on the toads right now, but thank you for all your help.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the students, and I'm going to just go down the line, and I'm going to start with Eliza. So I have unmuted you, Eliza. You can unmute yourself if you are prepared to speak. There you go. You're on.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so I kind of missed the beginning of the meeting, so I'm not sure what you guys have talked about. But
yeah, I just went through a list. I just went down a list of things that I have done in the past week. One of those, which is getting videos up to youtube.com/SaveTheFrogs, where this video will be appearing shortly, so you can go back and watch the first half of the class, and bear in mind that it's being recorded.
Okay, cool. All right, so I guess I'll share what I did thus far. So I've basically been trying to learn as much about the Fowler's toad as I possibly can, which includes learning. I actually picked up the Fowler's Toad Stewardship Guide, and not exactly sure who writes this, but it has pictures with Dr. David Green in it, and all about where the Fowler's toad is, how it was discovered, how to tell the difference between the Fowler's toad and American toad. So I've learned quite a bit in the last week, and I've also on Saturday went to the Crystal Beach site, as I live actually probably 5-10 minutes away, and I had a good idea of where the site was, but I wasn't entirely sure. So Marie Janik actually took me there and showed me around, and she actually took me to Point Abino, where her cottage is located, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't really understand how this place is not designated as a provincial park. The sand dunes are just unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, so it was interesting to see that the location of where they're planning to build this condo was actually in 1989. It was an old amusement park. So the foundation is kind of left there from when, I guess, there used to be like a dance floor at this area, and it's never been kind of ripped down, so there's like a wall barrier surrounding. So you could see that it's almost like the city had these plans for a long, long time to put something else in, because this has never been taken down. But the sand habitat is just beautiful, and I could see why it'd be so critical for the Fowler's toad. So anyway, I guess just with learning about what's going on, I did also email. I do work, for those of you who don't know, I work right now with Fish and Aquatics for the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And I did look into this matter, and terrestrial species such as anything living inland, there is a federal recovery strategy, but if you look where this site is designated in Crystal Beach, the land tenure is actually provincial. So anything within a provincial park is federal, and anything kind of outside of that, so where this site is, where the condo is potentially being built, is provincial. So that's why the Molinaro group only needs a provincial permit. But it's silly, because the federal there's a federal strategy for the other sites, and unfortunately Crystal Beach doesn't happen to be one of, or be kept by the federal government. So that's how they're kind of getting around it. And but I did email at work. I sent the federal government an email for the people that wrote the recovery strategy for the federal document. I forget the name because I got an email back and I got forwarded to somebody else. So I sent that email off asking about if they would require federal permits, and I'm just waiting for that response. And yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to have some. Maybe I can invite her if we're going to do an online meeting, because apparently she played a pretty big role. It's not Ann Yagi, it's someone for the federal government, but she played a pretty big role in developing the federal strategy. And I guess this person, it is a woman, and I guess she's in charge. So I'll have to get the name again when I get back to work. So yeah, so that's kind of what I've been up to. I think, yeah, that's what I have to add.
Okay, thanks. So let's see. I guess we have a choice of either going through here and just saying what we did in the last week, one by one, and then we all come back and have a chance to say what we're going to do in the upcoming week, and we can say that based on having heard everything that's happening, or each person can talk and say what they did and what they are going to do. And I guess we won't take a vote. I'll just say, I guess easiest. Why don't we just stick with it since you're on, Eliza? What are your
Yeah.
plans for this upcoming week?
Okay. So, well, I guess it does depend what everybody else wants to
Okay,
do, really.
then good.
I have some, I can share my ideas, though. I did sit with Marie, and she kind of, I guess there has been a lot of uproar and upcry within the city of Fort Erie already. There's been some meetings, and I haven't really been a part of all that. So we could try to do it again. And I guess we had discussed there is a new, Marie knows a little bit about this more, a new M&R individual in power who just got elected. So we're thinking of maybe bringing them into the picture, making a really strong case. And one thing that I think that I would really benefit, if someone wanted to make a kind of like a poster, and I wouldn't mind. I don't know if I have time to make it. I could try. I'm not that great at making this kind of stuff, but I could definitely get flyers and distribute them out into the local area, or go around to schools, or there's a local zoo, and I know they are a little involved with this issue, so I could definitely contact them. As well as my other idea, I'm involved with map making at work, and I feel like we have a lot of critical key data on, where the toad lives, and, we have all these populations, but I think a really important kind of neat project for me could be, we could look at the total area that has been designated as critical habitat by the federal government, which the M&R doesn't designate any areas because they only outline what the habitat should be, and then that way they can kind of get by this type of thing. Whereas the federal government, they actually say, Point Avenue, Crystal Beach, these are areas of critical habitat, so you cannot build these types of things. So I was thinking a good idea might be for me to kind of go along these shorelines. I'm really familiar with them, and I can actually go out to these sites and identify areas, or create a map that actually shows visually where the toad habitat is between Port Colborne and Crystal Beach, and identify where areas are there that there's a wall or a barrier that these toads cannot physically live, because there's actually quite a bit between the two sections. There's like Shirkston Shores Resort, which is a beach resort. There's Nickel Beach. There is Crystal Beach. So look at just the natural areas for where the toad can live, and then kind of make a statistic about, okay, so here's the total area we have, and this much is being occupied by humans, and this much is natural that we're giving the toad. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I thought it'd kind of be just a different type, a neat visualization, especially if we're going to do a presentation for the politicians. It might sink something new into their head instead of giving them all these words and graph. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this is Kerry, and the poster and flyers are definitely a good idea. I think they're #1 priority. Posters, I guess it depends on what your plans are for. When I think of poster, I think of an 18 by 24 inch poster, which is the kind that I get made for Save the Frogs, and I get printed in America, and in small quantities they're about $3 each, and I don't know how much they cost in Canada, and shipping to Canada is a lot. But it all comes down to where would you put them up? Where are you going to put up big posters? So flyers may be easier, and I think that's where you should start. And as I said, we do have included in your scholarships, you all get, I think, about 30 minutes of time with Save the Frogs graphic designer Allison Lee to help you make whatever kind of icon, web graphics, poster, flyer, whatever graphic design you need, she can assist with. So I think, Eliza, mapping, I'm not sure what's been done. Maybe Patrick knows And I guess it all comes down to how long do you think it's going to take and what are you going to do with the info. And, you know, if it's not a massive project, then it sounds like a good idea. When I think of mapping, I probably think of something that's larger than the scope of this course in as far as time goes, but maybe not. And again, I have not personally seen the site. And I guess another thing is that I have trouble visualizing everything, and maybe if you had a good map, it would make it easier for me to visualize everything. So
I think, yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you're up for it and you don't think it's, you know, a super time, you know, if you can do it, then you're welcome to do it. And I'd certainly be in touch with Patrick to see if he already knows of maps like that.
If he already knows of what, sorry?
Of maps that may exist already.
Okay.
Based on other biologists' work with the toads so far.
Yeah, I was just specifically going to do one that that has like, so this is the location, but then eliminate areas or red flag them where there's been development already, and look at only areas where there's natural habitat for these toads. And it's, I'll tell you, it's got to be less than 20%, and otherwise everything's been developed where we're talking about.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, so I say go for it. And then as far as the flyer, why don't you contact me, and I'll put you in touch with Allison. For any of you, whenever you're making anything for a graphic designer, you come up with the text. You come up with the photos and the, if possible, any ideas about how big the text should be, where it should be, where the photos should be. But at a minimum, you give the graphic designer the text. So you need to think about that really specifically. How much room do you have to work with? How do you get your message across in the clearest way with the least number of words? And again, as far as a picture of a toad, I've got, you know, this, I took this picture of the toad that's at the top of our web page here. If you guys have better toad photos, then, you know, that would be good to, you know, if you have an amazing toad photo, please send me your high resolution image. I guess I'll just say that. And maybe Patrick does or knows somebody who does. Certainly photos, the more photos we have, the better. Photos are very important, which is why you see photos all over Save the Frogs webpage. Okay, so thanks, Eliza. And I'm going to move on to Lindsay. And Lindsay, I've unmuted you. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. How's it going?
It's going. I've been doing a lot of research. I haven't actually gotten to writing anything yet because I kind of like to have all my ducks in a row.
Okay.
I have a lot of documents. I think I'd probably feel more comfortable just like discussing with you first.
Okay.
One thing I really plan on doing this week is I actually want to contact a developer because I did locate the environmental impact report.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to actually speak with them directly. Not that I'm sure they probably won't respond back, but just to kind of understand certain places where they're coming from, just to have an idea of the project, I think, before going in full blast trying to, you know, stop it. I just want to understand everywhere they're coming from because you also have to realize when you're coming in saying, you know, we need to stop this project, you want to be prepared for what the other side's going to say so you can have a rebuttal to that. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I don't know if everyone else would be interested in looking at the environmental impact reports. It's online, so we can all just kind of look at it.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on this issue of how can we get a place where we can all put files easily. I know that there are programs that do it, but I don't know what they are. But for now, if you go to Facebook, then you probably received an invite from me for a group that I created, a specific group. And if you didn't get it, then maybe you're not my Facebook friend. So you should send me a friend request, facebook.com/Kerry Kriger, and then I can add you to that group. And in that group, you can add anything related specifically to or of interest to Save the Frogs Academy, your fellow students, and that would be for any of our Save the Frogs Academy classes. But things like that, there's a file. You can upload a file. So if you have a new file that's of relevance to people or you want people to comment on, then you can upload the file and say, hey, I just found this EIR statement just to let you know. Or you could say, hey, here's a draft of the 8.5 by 11 inch A4 flyer that I created. What do you all think? And I think that can be a helpful tool for us being able to collaborate a bit more efficiently. And again, that's on Facebook. And if you can't find it, then send me a message through Facebook and I'll put you right through there. Or if you don't use Facebook, then let me know, which is one reason why it's maybe better that we have some system not on Facebook. But for now, that's what we have. Okay, back to you, Lindsay. Sorry.
No, no problem. So I've just been looking at that. One thing that is concerning to me is just that they are not listed in the United States. And that's something I think we all need to discuss because I'm worried that if we get far into this, the developers could turn around and say, well, they don't have protection in the United States where they have a huge range. And I don't know if there's a way maybe we can get in contact with local herpetologists who can show that the United States can be quite behind on listing animals. It's a lot harder for them to get listed here from what I've noticed. But I looked them up on IUCN. They're listed as least concern, and it said that their population here is stable, which could be that they haven't researched it in a while. But I'm just kind of worried about just finding things like that online.
Yeah, I don't think the Fowler's toads are endangered in the United States. You are correct in saying that there's a huge backlog of listings from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service of animals that are endangered that they have not had time or desire to get listed yet. But the Fowler's toads are certainly not globally threatened, but that has nothing to do with Ontario law. It also has nothing to do with the ethics of destroying wildlife populations, and it goes back to the concept of death by 1,000 cuts, which is if we're taking out one population at a time, then eventually they will be endangered. So I don't think developers, I'm going to assume, don't care about, they just want to get their building built. So, and it's not, I don't think U.S. law is relevant to it. And regardless of their status globally, we're still trying to protect them. And, yeah, so I don't think you should focus on that side of things.
Okay, I mean, I agree. My whole thing is I understand how developers work, and you're right, they don't care about the environment. I just want to be aware of what they could potentially throw back at us.
Yeah, they can't do certainly nothing from a legal perspective. U.S. law is not of any relevance to them.
Okay, so like I said, I'm not overly familiar with Canadian law. I just kind of know what I've been sort of finding here, and I'll send you a lot of the documents, and I think like the EIR is really important to have on hand.
Oh, yeah. If it's not up on our additional reading list, then, yeah, please send it to me. I guess this also goes back to, I guess, our method for this campaign. Perhaps it's legal, but it's more sociological and psychological that you get the will of the people behind you and speaking out, and politicians are affected by that just as much as they are by the law. So maybe, maybe everything is legal, but that doesn't mean it's ethical, and it doesn't mean that politicians will not care when the vast majority of their supporters are sending them emails telling them to change their ways, that if they don't change their ways, then they're not going to get reelected. Because politicians work on, can I get reelected? Certainly elected politicians do, and the politicians who work for them, in part they follow their orders, maybe they help out But regardless, it all comes back to what's the will of the people, which then becomes probably our highest chance of success, getting people active, making some noise, making politicians who want to kill amphibians look bad, and making politicians who help protect amphibians look good. And of course, I'm fully open to legal methods. I'm not, I'm just saying we don't have an environmental lawyer on staff, or even I've never had any kind of environmental lawyer take up any case for Save the Frogs. If we did, then that would be a good focus of things. I'm not saying it's not something worth, keeping in mind. I just think that our main way with our current abilities that we will save Lake Erie's toads is by focusing on getting a lot of public support.
And for public support, the best that I've found right now is there's a local group, Friends of Crystal Beach. I think if we were trying to be more aligned with them, that could help, because from what I've gathered, at least from some forums on here, they seem to be more on our side of not wanting the condominiums to come in. And, I think if we were to have just a higher number of people, even if their goals are slightly different than ours, that could help, because at the end of the day, they don't want that development there just as much as we don't.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that Marie knows the Friends of Crystal Beach. Maybe she can chime in when it comes time for her to talk. And I definitely agree. Any group any kind of community group, any kind of slow growth group, any wildlife group, anywhere in Ontario, it doesn't even have to be Fort Erie, but definitely Fort Erie, Crystal Beach, all those groups should be contacted. And, a lot of those groups are going to have more supporters in Ontario than we have. And also, yeah, I'll just add, going back to the law, Marie writes in, Ontario law protects them, and they found a loophole to get around the law. In my view, that is correct. I wouldn't even call it a loophole. I'd say Ontario law protects them. They're an endangered species. You cannot harm, harass, kill, or collect the toads without a permit to do so. So you can't issue, the Ontario government is not allowed to issue a permit unless you have proven or shown that your actions will create a benefit, a net benefit for the toads, meaning that if there's 1,000 toads now, then they don't define a time length. So I'll just say in the future, there are more than 1,000 toads. That's what our December 2011 comments were related to, the permit process, where I went line by line through all the benefits that Molinaro, or that the permit said Molinaro must do to benefit the frog, and I gave specific comments that 1,717 Save the Frog supporters agreed with enough to send their version of that letter that went line by line saying, no, this is not going to benefit the toads. And so Ontario then is acting illegally by issuing a permit when there is no reason to believe that the developers will do anything to provide a net benefit to the toad. So from a legal perspective, the permit should never have been entered, or the permit should never have been given. The toad should be protected. So we do have the law on our side, in my view. Okay, so Lindsay, and yeah, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to go to Ryan. We'll come back to everybody. Let's just say what we did, and then we'll come back to everybody to say what we're going to do. And we've got about 36 minutes left. So I'm going to go to Ryan because I think he's having some phone issues and may not have a phone for much longer. So let's see if he is offline. So I'm going to read what he wrote. He said, he worries about the automation of sending emails to politicians. Any assistant can run a macro to delete them. Yes, that's true. All you do is set up a filter, but when the emails arrive in the middle of the night and you wake up in the morning with 500 of them in your inbox, you're probably going to read one of them. And also, as far as governments go, governments are probably not allowed to delete incoming emails. And I know that when we mass emailed the National Park Service successfully to get them to remove non-native fish from Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park, they actually had to hire an independent contractor, a temp worker, to come in and log every single email into their system of who's written us. So I don't know if the governments, I'm not worried about that. They'll wake up and they'll check their email, and there's a lot of emails waiting for them, and they're just about guaranteed to read one of them. Okay, so let's see. We have not had any, I'm answering some of Ryan's questions since his phone is now dead. We have not had any contact with the Molinaro group other than I went to their website many months ago, found the contact email, and I sent them an email, and I never heard anything back. Now, if somebody wants to protest in front of their offices, I think that would be great. Moving on. Let me read the rest of your comments. Yeah, so Ryan says that there are lots of other species in the area of the development, and that perhaps if we can find other species affected by the construction, we can partner with other species preservation groups to make our presence larger. That's definitely true, and that does bring up a good point. I'm not sure why the toads are the only wildlife that has kind of raised a red flag with this development, and maybe because it's sand dunes and it's not high biodiversity, and perhaps there are not many other species around there of interest or that would be affected or that are endangered, but certainly maybe Patrick or Eliza know that, and they can send us in something about that. And Marie says they did not have an environmental assessment report done because they said it wasn't necessary for anything but toads. So it's kind of interesting. How do they know that if there was not an environmental impact report done? I think in America you pretty much always have to do an environmental impact report. So, you know, again, there's all kinds of these legal loopholes and different issues, and I'm usually not too concerned about that because from my experience, and I'm not trying to be negative, but getting stuff done politically is really slow and really hard, and I don't have an environmental lawyer. That's why. And also, it's not my specialty. It's not Save the Frogs' specialty, not yet anyway. For now, what we're best at is getting the public active, educated, inspired. And so, you know, there's all these little legal issues like, you know, what if this, or maybe they didn't do that. And I don't, you know, if we send a letter to someone, we don't even always get emails back from the politicians, and we don't have money right now to sue. If somebody knows an environmental group with lawyers or an environmental lawyer, one in Canada who's prepared to sue, then hey, that would be cool. Until then, I'm certainly not the expert on the legal side of things, and I don't think it's where our most force would emanate from, I'll say. Okay. Okay, let me look through some of these other questions. Friends of Crystal Beach has, this is what a chat arrived, saying that a Friends of Crystal Beach has been threatened to have their local funding cut if they don't stop talking about this. It would be good to create a document listing all the people who have been threatened or, yeah, if people have been threatened in any way, whether it's a legal way or a we're watching you shut up kind of way, I think we should document that and make it clear. I'm fine. Most of us are in America. They're not coming after us. So we're 100% free to, you know, put it to public light. You know, but we need a little report on it. So if you want to prepare a report and you can remain anonymous, then let's do it. I think that's a good thing to have on the site, because that, again, is what's used to get the public riled up. Because I don't, you know, why do I care about this campaign? It's part of the toads. Again, they're not globally threatened. There are globally threatened frogs that may need our assistance more than these toads, but these toads have lots of other issues. They're a toad that the public sees. They're a way to raise awareness for amphibians in general and environmental conservation. If the condo goes through, it sets or continues a bad precedent to destroy wildlife. And, you know, it's a good way to stop the whole development thing, which is going to continue to destroy Canada's natural places if it doesn't get stopped and if people don't get involved. And again, addition to that, when politicians are threatening people who support wildlife, then that's our obligation and our opportunity to raise awareness of the negative way that environmentalists are portrayed when we're the ones who are doing the right thing and helping out. And if politicians are going to be threatening people, then let's make the public clear that that's what's going on, and then those politicians will have less chance of getting reelected. I'm going to move on. So we got a chat from Patrick, who has pursued environmental lawyers with eco-justice and environmental success with no success yet. As campaigns grow and more people get involved, then more people are willing to get involved because they see that other people care and are active. So I wouldn't give up on them. We just need someone. Ideally, and maybe we'll do this different in the future, maybe we'll just assign tasks to people. But it is so important that we get other environmental groups involved that, you know, perhaps we should have someone specifically dedicated to partnerships. Okay, Ryan, whose phone, again, is not working. He writes in on what he did for the week. He began working on a script, an idea for a YouTube video, and will be looking for an animator. So if someone knows somebody who does video animation, then let us know. And he will hopefully begin recording. And I did read his script. And that's, again, is perfect kind of thing that one would take the file of, the Word doc of your script, and post it up on our new Facebook group page where people can look at it and comment if they want in the easiest fashion without us having to mass email everybody every time we have something. And okay, so yeah, I'll be Ryan, or I guess he's not on the line anymore. Okay, so moving on. Another chat came in. Eliza works for fisheries and oceans, not terrestrial land species, and is still learning the process. If you look at the federal document, there's a section that says land tenure, and at Crystal Beach it says provincial. Eliza has sent an email to the author of the Federal Recovery Strategy asking about SARA permits. I don't know what that is. For this type of situation, and hopes to get a response back soon. And Eliza guesses that a SARA permit would not be required as it's not on federal land. It's provincial. Okay. Species at risk assessment, I assume. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to Marie. And I think Marie is our, Marie is, I'm totally unable to unmute you for some reason. Are you there, Marie?
I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
can you hear me?
All right, yeah,
Okay.
I hear you. So it's,
Okay, I worked on a petition, which I'm not sure if you saw or not. I put on that document. It's a little longer, I know, than you wanted it to be. But one point I thought might be good to make is that from the point of view of people who might be environmentalists but not that into toads in particular, I think that this decision to let untested artificial habitat be used as an excuse for destroying successful natural habitat is one that environmentalists who care about every species should be upset about. So I thought it would be a good idea to include in that petition, in order to kind of like increase the number of people who are concerned about this, that that we feel that this permit should be revoked, not only to save the toads, but also to disestablish the precedent that it would otherwise be setting, that you can make up some little artificial habitat that you haven't even tested and rope it off and say, okay, that makes up for destroying the natural habitat that that this species has been living in. That's bad, first of all, because you don't know this artificial habitat is going to work, and so it's foolhardy to destroy something that's working for something that you don't know if it's going to work. And secondly, because there's other spin-off for protecting the habitat of protected species. It's not just protecting the species, it's protecting the habitat, which in this case is a public beach, which is a beautiful beach, and also the drinking water that empties into Lake Erie, which is a major source of drinking water for both the United States and Canada, that will be affected by building this high-rise, which will be extremely close to the beach. And now in that regard, another thing that I did was I've looked into, there is a permit that I don't believe has been granted yet to Molinaro, and that's the building permit. And one of the flaws I see there is that there is no mention made there that I can find of the fact that there will be an underground garage that will be extending under the water table right on this public beach, which is protected habitat, which is critical habitat for an endangered species. And that, water will be getting into that underground garage, especially since there are frequent storms and high water surges. And it'll have to be pumped out, and there will be pumps. The plan is to pump it out into the parking lots. And from there, it will go into the neighborhood where the people live, because they're lower, or into the lake, or maybe into the neighborhood and then into the lake. Either way, I don't think that this is something that the neighbors should, I think they should be made aware of, that this is going to be causing flooding problems. And I think that the Ministry of the Environment, who there actually has been some correspondence with him, and he says, well, we'll have to address this at a later stage, at the building permit stage. So that's coming up. And they also, the Ministry of the Environment kind of passes it off and says, oh, well, it's up to the MNR to protect the local species. But the MNR doesn't know about the parking garage being underground, because that wasn't in their permit. So they kind of like divide this up into different groups, and one doesn't know about the whole, no one knows about the whole story, and so they can kind of, pass it off. So one of the things that I want to do is to find out more about the pumping of this garage water, which of course will be contaminated. Why is it that they didn't mention that in their permit? Why did they only mention the water that will be coming from the roof, and which will be relatively clean? So I think that's something that we can go to with politicians, something we can go to with, to the local people, and something we can go to the MNR with and say, wait a minute, this is, even if you have your artificial habitat and you're pumping dirty water into the water that the toads use and that people drink, this is something that has to be looked at. And since there's a new head of the MNR, I think we can alert him to that, and also to the mapping stuff that Eliza wants to do. And I'm also thinking that with this new information, and also with the report, the support of Save the Frogs, that I can go again to environmental defense, which has in the past offered, been sympathetic and even mentioned giving me some legal help. But then I think they thought that, well, this is a dead case. But if this is something that we can find there are still some ways that they can act upon, then there's a lawyer from environmental defense that I can bring this to, as well as bringing it to the new Minister of Natural Resources. Thirdly, there's a book as far as warming up the public to this idea. There's a book that is being planned to be written on the Fowler's toads that will feature artwork on the Fowler's toads and anecdotal stories about people, how much they love their Fowler's toads and how much they've enjoyed sharing the beach with them, that type of thing. And that's something that I think we can get behind too.
Okay, thanks. So I guess a couple things. In this original letter that we sent to the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources in December 2011, I did specifically say, when they said their permit to benefit toads will create areas of dune habitat and plant with dune grasses and native shrubs to enhance toad habitat, I said, as stated earlier, okay, so I probably went into it more in depth before, man-made structures will be unlikely to improve upon the toad's current habitat choice. That's something that I believe very strongly in, that no human knows where a toad wants to breed more than a toad does. If the toad chose a place, then that's the best spot around. So whatever man-made habitat we build, not only is it in all likelihood inferior, but it will not be kept up for decades to come. It will undergo ecological succession, and the vegetation will change, things will erode, and whatever gets built will change over the course of a few years into something that was not even as good as it was when the so-called experts built it.
Yes, and the plan for the artificial habitat is it's bizarre. It involves burying all sorts of rocks underground, which of course is needed for the support for the building, which could be why the rocks are really being put there. And those rocks are going to impede the ability of the toads to bury down into the hibernation. They need to go sometimes 2 meters underground, 6 feet underground, to get below the frost line, and they need to get way back in order for it not to freeze while they do that. Now, if you've got all sorts of rocks buried there, well, there's a reason that toads never hibernate in areas with all sorts of rocks. The rocks will make it difficult for them to get up. It'll make it to go down. It'll make it difficult for them to come back up again. So the plan that they have is very flawed, and a number of people have pointed this out. But I think that it can be pointed out more specifically with plans that have been more recently published. So that's another thing I think that we should include in going to the new head of the MNR and to going to legal help again, is how the artificial habitat stands very, very little chance of succeeding even before it starts to degrade, as you're discussing.
Okay, and yeah, so I did. This topic is so important that it was the first thing I mentioned in my letter, going down point by point. I said, no overall benefit to the species will be achieved within a reasonable time through the conditions of the permit. It's unfathomable to think that building a business or residential complex on top of toads' homes will provide a benefit to the species. Fort Erie's Fowler's toads chose their current breeding, foraging, and shelter sites for a reason, and no human on the planet knows more about how to increase those Fowler's toads' chances of reproductive success than do the toads themselves. Thus, it is naive to accept the developer's claim that building artificial sand dunes will provide a benefit to the toad. Okay, so we all agree on this point. It's just a good one to, anytime someone says, oh, we're mitigating the impacts of our development, or we're just going to move the animals to somewhere else. Maybe they move them somewhere natural, and then they just compete with, it would be like me putting 3 new people in your house. You're not going to get along. Or me knocking down your house and building up some horrible little thing for you to stay in. It's not going to be as good. So anytime someone says, "Oh, it's all this development's fine. It's all being taken care of," I don't believe that. I think those are just laws that came into being through decades of lobbying from developers who have money and were successful in making the law
especially
support their
the
efforts like
strategy, the survival strategy for Fowler's toads is that you have these little pockets of population, and that the conditions, if the water gets too high that year, one little pocket gets wiped out, but the next pocket down the line where conditions are okay has to be able to close enough so that it can, a few toads from that area can happen to come in and revive that population. So if those spots are too far apart, that can't happen. And by killing this one spot, that is going to make the positions, the different spots too far apart. So it's endangering not just this little area, but the whole coastline by taking one of the areas in the middle and destroying it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So thanks for all that. Let's, we no longer have Tessa on the line because I think she had a fire drill where she was. So she's not here. And I think let's just go down. We've got 15 minutes to say whatever we want to say. So, a few minutes each person up to. It doesn't have to be long. And if you know what you're doing this coming week, say so. And if you want me to give you something to do, then I'm happy to. Those main things being contacting partners, and I think this idea of that we get some kind of online meeting going is good, not just for the politicians, but also we can ask Mayor Doug Martin, Professor David Green, we can get someone from Environment Canada, someone from the Ontario MNR, someone from Fort Erie, Councilman Don Lubberts, and we can also get someone from environmental defense and eco-justice and whatever other big Canadian wildlife groups there are. And I just thought of another one that's big, but I can't remember their name, but I'll look it up. And again, that comes down to we need someone to contact these people, and as far as environmental defense and eco-justice, it would be good to have someone working on partnerships, and that could be included in a letter to someone saying, hey, we need your help, and we're meeting online and would like you to be there to learn more and to give your input on, the toads and take part in the call. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to Eliza. We're back to you, and I think that we already talked about maps and flyers, but if you want to say anything, then you can unmute yourself. You're on.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to take on the of creating a flyer, and I can work on trying to do the map project because I think it's going to take some time. And then I guess I can distribute those, or Marie and I can, because Marie's pretty close, and we can try to figure out a way to just best distribute those. I would like to try to get the local zoo involved, and I know they've done some Fowler's toad stuff, and maybe get them aware.
Okay. Sorry, let me just stop you right there. Zoo's a good idea. Let them know Save the Frogs Day, Saturday, April 27th. And it's worldwide. We'd love to have them taking part doing some Fowler's toad education that day. And we can get them up on our website too, so they'll get a little bit of publicity and be part of a worldwide event. That would be the best way to get them involved, I think.
Okay. And I guess I'll just respond. I see that Patrick was commenting on how is critical habitat protected on private land. So within the federal strategy, I know this is kind of confusing, but within the federal strategy, the federal government designates critical habitat specific areas, whereas MNR does not do that. They provide an outline of what the area could be, and that way they can kind of get around this. So if you look at the federal strategy, it's got there's a table in there, and it's got areas and their location, and then it's got a column that says land tenure, and it says provincial for the Crystal Beach location, which means that it does not require a SARA permit. So I'm just verifying that, but I double-checked with another biologist who's worked in the field for almost, I would say she's been there 10 years plus, and she said that's how she interpreted it. But again, I'm in fish and aquatic science, so I did send someone else an email to confirm that they don't need a SARA permit, but I think they probably would have started that process already, and it looks like they got their MNR permit and they don't need a SARA permit because it's on provincial land. So that's that question. I hope that answers that. And as to, I guess, what we're going to do, I'm not like how we're going to bring the group together. I can try to do the mapping thing, and so I guess Marie, like I'm just not sure. We're going to get a list of politicians' names and feed them emails and do all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm taking charge of that. That's kind of on my end of things now, getting the action alerts going. And if you want me to, I can. I don't have them in front of me right now, but basically I have a list of about 13 different emails of politicians, from people at Fort Erie to Ontario to federal, and
Okay.
I can send them to you if you want to see them, but they're going out. I figure if they're in the government at any of the 3 levels, then they should know what's going on.
So you're just going to send out kind of a letter outlining what's been happening?
It's a letter that will be a whole lot like the letter that you can read. Well, there's 2 different letters. There's a few different letters on the Lake Erie Toads page. It'll be some version of that, and it'll be related. I guess we'll put in some wording that it's specifically that they have a call for comments about I'll read. I can't remember what the call for comments is for. It's something related to Fowler's toads in Canada, and I'm going to say, here's my comment. If you want to protect Fowler's toads, then here's what's going on at Lake Erie, and here's why you need to stop it.
Do you, when are you planning on sending that out?
Hopefully tomorrow, because it's due on the 10th. So if I put it together tomorrow and get it out to our mailing list, then we'll have, we'll be safe and say we'll have, 4 days of people checking their emails and hitting send.
Yep. Okay. I thought it would be cool to have that map document kind of in there with it.
Oh, no, it's not going to go in that, because this call for comments is due on the 10th. But when it's done, right, we'll deal with promotion, brainstorm on how we get the map out to people, and in what way we get it out to people, and we'll just deal with that once we have it.
Okay. The call for comments is regarding the federal strategy, right?
I believe that's true. It's going to Environment Canada. Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
So let's move on because we don't have a lot of time. So, yeah, keep on top of the mapping, and I think that you and Patrick should be in touch.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Lindsay, hi, we have you on. So if you have ideas on what you want to do this week, then let us know. Or if you seek some projects to do, then we can take care of that too.
Okay, so where I am is, like I said, I actually do think it could be beneficial just to maybe see if the developer will respond back, even if it's, just complete lies or whatever. At least we can see if they would say anything back. More than that, like you mentioned about the death from 1,000 cuts, I was going to try to make a comparison to the Fowler toads to the Houston toads when back in the 70s we had several different opportunities to help that toad out, and we just ignored them all. And the fact is, last I read anywhere, 2 toads were noted in 2011, and so it's a good chance they're extinct in the wild. So it's going to take a while for that to actually be posted officially. So I think if I could post or write something stating, you know, we're at a time where we can actually help this toad so we're not in this position, maybe the least we could do for the Houston toad is not allow it to happen to the Fowler's toad. So that's kind of something I was thinking of just piecing together right now.
That sounds good to me. It sounds like what you should do is prepare that as a letter to the call for comments for Environment Canada, and which is good because when they all get the same letter from 1,000 people, they sometimes count it as one letter. You know, psychologically it's more than that, but they may be like, yeah, it was just one letter. But if your letter's completely different, then that sounds, you know, that's good. And then the basis of that letter, you can use parts of it to send to the federal government, and you can send, you know, a different version of it to the developers. I think when we contact the developers, it should have, you know, let's make sure we know what you're asking them. Are you asking them, like, how do you plan to protect the toads, or are you asking them to join us at an online meeting, or to, you know, I think
start off by asking them to join us. I think it would be almost more beneficial just to say, you know, I was reading your toad mitigation plan. How did you come up with this? What are your 10, 20, 30-year plans to make sure that this habitat is sustainable? Just, I think, questions like that.
Okay, that's
I don't
fine.
want to put them on the defensive initially. I don't want them to say, like, oh, it's just some crazy environmentalist and delete it and never hear back. I think if I can maybe ask them questions they wouldn't feel offended by asking or answering, then we'd probably do better with them.
Okay, that's fine. And I would just, you know, I'd try to make your letter so that it is also usable for this official thing coming up that's due on the 10th. And then you've got double the impact from your letter. And then, of course, for all of you, if you ever prepare something and you want it to go on this web page, then, you know, let's get it to its final form, and we'll make a PDF of it and put it on the web page. And then, you know, you never know who reads that. The web page will be up for as long as the site's up, so people will read it, and you'll be magnifying your impact. Okay, so that sounds good, Lindsay. Let's move on. Murray, I think something's weird. I think you're on.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, wait. Here we go. Go for it. And we only have a couple minutes, so just give us a quick summary, please.
All right. One thing I wanted to mention is that Tassel will be home for a week, the week of March 11th. And if anybody, I forget who's making the video, or maybe she could even make her own video, but she could use feature local clips of the area, which I think would be very helpful to actually see what the area is like in a video.
I definitely, yeah, it's definitely a good idea. Any kind of film or photos she gets is great.
Okay, so we'll have her work on that when she's home on break.
And also, sorry, let me just stop you there.
Go ahead.
Videos, the other thing you can do, you just point the camera at yourself and you start talking, and bam, there's a 3-minute YouTube video with your thoughts. And, you know, you scan the camera to show some nice nature scenery, and then you say, hey, do you know what's happening here? Here's how you can get involved. So you can let her know that we're totally cool with her doing that.
Okay, all right. Maybe she should just make her own rather than trying to contribute, because it sounds like there's already a script for the other one.
So we can always use footage. So one can be just straight up nature scenery, and one, if she, you know, if she wants to interview herself or you or anybody and say whatever, then great. I say go for it. I've been, you know, I just kind of got back into the YouTube thing as far as putting stuff up to YouTube a few days ago. It's super easy. Once you have the film, you just hit upload, you give it a title, you give it some tags, and it's up there. So
great.
I think that's a good idea. Anything else real quick to say?
Well, I'll be contacting lawyers, but I also want to make a plug for, if there's anybody who's going to make flyers, I could pass them out at the next Burt Miller Nature meeting, which is on March 18th. So I guess both Eliza and I are hoping somebody might make flyers.
Yeah, I'll probably end up taking charge of that based on my 5 years of frog flyer making experience.
Okay.
So petition, or sorry, the action alert and the flyer are my two Main things. We actually need an icon as well for the top of this page so that people can put it on their site. So instead of just a toad, it would say, Save Lake Erie's Toads with the URL right there. Something like that would be simple. And then finally, I'm going to put Patrick back on. If you're there and you have anything to say, you are unmuted.
Thank you, Kerry. I have drafted a list of some persons that I feel would be useful, so we can certainly, among others, collaborate on that. And it also includes a few persons from Ontario Nature, a large conservation group in the province, and they've had a considerable amount of sway. In the past, they've also produced quite a number of reports, namely for a call to the Ministry of Natural Resources to end a hunt of snapping turtles in the province just last year. So they do frequently sit down with ministry workers, for which unfortunately the ministry's a bit of a mess right now, swapping personnel, as well as cuts to their present budget. But nonetheless, we have a new ear to talk to, and Ontario Nature might be a beneficial group to get our foot in the door to do so. So I hope for upcoming meetings, I will have a few contacts that we can rope in and also get their informed opinion on matters as we continue to move forth with this.
Okay, thanks. So thanks for being here, and we'll be back online same exact time the next 2 Mondays. And if you know anyone who wants to join, and they don't have to talk or anything, if they're just interested in sitting in, then that's good. And thanks for all your help. Okay, so I think that concludes this edition of Save the Frogs Academy Lake Erie Toads class, but it doesn't fully conclude it because Marie wants to say one more very quick thing, and I think you're now on.
Yeah, am I on?
Yes.
Okay, just 2 other thoughts is I know somebody who has done a painting of Fowler's toads habitat, and somebody who has made some Fowler's toads quilts, and both of them I know we're thinking that it might be possible to auction them off as a fundraiser. Is that something that maybe could go on the Save the Frogs website?
Yeah, what I'd suggest is that they put it up on eBay, and they can choose to donate 100% of it to Save the Frogs. We're listed as an eBay nonprofit. They can attempt to sell it through their network of people. If they do give me a URL of the eBay listing, and if it's being donated to Save the Frogs, then I'll certainly put it in, up on Facebook. I can't guarantee it would make it into a newsletter unless they give sufficient time in their eBay listing.
Okay.
But that's the easiest way. I don't want anybody to send an item to me for certain.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so that does conclude this class. Thank you, everyone, and stay in touch, and thanks for all your help. Bye.